Now here's your host, Bill Teegins.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Eddie Sutton Show. The regular basketball season is over. It's postseason time, and Coach coming off a very emotional, very tough, exciting ball game at Kansas. Randy Rutherford, what a performance.
It was one of the strangest games that I've ever coached in, and of course the setting was magnificent. I don't think very often it happens where the two best teams in the league go down to the final game of the year to play for the conference championship. And of course a great setting in Allen Fieldhouse. They were celebrating the 40th year that wonderful building was constructed. The largest crowd, I guess, ever to see a game at Lawrence. And two outstanding basketball teams going head to head. And when I say it's a strange game, 3 weeks prior to this ball game, we beat Kansas in Stillwater. And Bryant Reeves had the greatest performance that I've ever had a big man have for me in the 25 years I've coached Division I basketball. 33 points, 20 rebounds, dominated the game. We go to Lawrence, he gets shut out. And I would have bet a year's salary that whether you play in the Spurs, the Knickerbockers, the Magic, that there's no way in a 40-minute game Bryant could get shut out. Great defense by Kansas. Roy Williams told me that they worked 5 days in a row just trying to set their defense where it'd be difficult, and it was. But he also missed 3 or 4 real easy shots. But then in that game, I had the greatest performance that a perimeter player's ever had. Randy Rutherford scored 45 points, hit 11 threes. He was unstoppable. But the other thing that he did, Hess, their fine guard, who's a second-team all-performer in the Big Eight, Randy held him to 6 points on 2 out of 9 shooting, and Randy also picked up 8 rebounds and 1 turnover in 40 minutes. So, I mean, a magnificent performance by Rutherford. And when the game was over, you know, we were disappointed, but they were still talking about the opposite end of the spectrum. Rutherford with 45, and that was only 3 points shy of the all-time record that a player had ever had against Kansas. I took him out late just to let the Kansas crowd acknowledge the performance, which they did. They're very knowledgeable people up there. They've had great fans for many years. But if I'd have known he was just 3 points shy, we'd have set some special plays up, which we did, to see if he could have broken that record. But now the real season begins again. Everybody's 0-0. And we go into Big 8 play, and we're pre-recording this show, and we'll play Nebraska on Friday night. And then, of course, next week, the NCAA. And when I say the real season, this is what basketball is all about. You work hard to get yourself in this position. And I'm so proud of our 4 seniors and our whole basketball team. If you remember when we limped out of Manhattan about 6 weeks ago, boy, that was a low point of this season. And since that time, we've really played great basketball. You know, we finished second in one of the toughest leagues in the Big 8. And by finishing second, in the 5-year period, we've either tied for first with Kansas one year and finished second the other 4 years. And when you finish that high in a conference like the Big 8, that means your players have really played well. We, have won 20 games every year. We're going to be in the NCAA tournament. But this ball club has really made a lot of progress, and I'm very, very proud of what they have been able to do.
I think I might be one of the only guys who thought coming out of that Kansas State game that we had a shot. Just kidding. We had many discussions about that. But also, some big news for Bryant Reeves because he just picked up a great award.
Well, he did. Randy Rutherford and Bryant Reeves were both first-team all-selections by the media. And the coaches, and you can't vote for your own players, and I voted for Ryan Miner, the fine player at the University of Oklahoma, as the MVP. But the coaches, and I think they truly see who is the most valuable. They voted Bryant Reeves the MVP of the Big 8, and that's the second time he's won it. He won it as a sophomore, and last year he was a runner-up. So he's had a magnificent career here. He scored over 2,000 points, picked up over 1,000 rebounds, and he's only one of 5 players ever to be able to do that. So, hey, we're going to miss that big guy next year.
Boy, isn't that the truth. Well, we got some great highlights to show you because it was a special day in Lawrence, Kansas as the Kansas Jayhawks and the Oklahoma State Cowboys battled it out for the Big 8 championship. We'll show you the highlights when we come back. Welcome back to the Eddie Sutton Show. The Cowboys with a big visit to Lawrence, Kansas, and as you said, Coach, a real festive occasion because it was the 40th anniversary of Allen Fieldhouse.
I have been there numerous times as a player and as a coach at Arkansas and playing in the NCAA tournament, but I've never heard it as loud as it was last Sunday afternoon. They were revved up, and I think it was the first time in over 50 years in the Big 8 that it had come down to the last game of the year where two teams were tied to going in to see who would win the championship. And you're going to see in the first half, I thought both teams defensively were just outstanding, and every time there was a loose ball, you would see bodies flying everywhere. And we got to halftime with a 1-point lead, and Bryant hadn't scored, and I thought, golly, we're 1 point up, and Reeves hadn't scored. We're in great shape.
Sure.
But in the second half, they shot the ball and played a little bit better than we did and ended up pulling away. But there's Pierce hitting. He was one of 4 players to score. He had 7 points. We only had 4 guys score, which is really unusual. And there's a good example of what I'm saying. Great hustle, great intensity on the part of both ball clubs. We both have great respect for each other. And when Kansas plays Oklahoma State, it's a hard-fought, clean battle. And when the game's over, the guys hug each other, knowing that, hey, they've left it all out there on the court.
Did you have any feeling before the game, obviously that Randy wasn't going to score 45, but any feeling that he was going to be more magical on that day than any other day?
Look at this play right here. He not only is a great shooter, that was a great hustle play, and he got that rebound. No, I mean, we always know he's going to play well, but I don't think any of us thought in a very tough setting like we were playing in, a guy could have a game like he had. And, of course, Tom Dirato's got a spatial feature on him a little bit later in the show, and just an outstanding piece on what he did in this ball game. You can see the depth of some of his shots. I mean, he was shooting 3-point shots. This is the beginning of the second half, and we, as I said, we make a steal, and he goes down, and we got a 3-point lead after he made that steal. But from then on, it was Kansas. They hit one streak there where when they broke the game, I think they scored 13 or 14 points in a row, and we didn't have any answers for that.
Billy Thomas hit some big shots for them when you got close. Boy, he
had 5 threes in the second half. He was an outstanding freshman player from down in Louisiana.
Good defense by Oklahoma State.
Keontae Roberts didn't score, but Keontae Roberts played very well in this game. There's a nifty move by Randy Rutherford. Here you go. We're setting screens for him. When a guy's hot and he's in a zone like Randy, we've got some spatial plays we set for him, and where right here he's getting 3 screens, and he shot the ball under heavy pressure.
Let me ask you this question. How does Bryant handle this? Because I'm sure he was shocked. I mean, he's gone never in his career where he hadn't scored a point. So how do you deal with that, and how does he deal with it?
I want to talk about that a little bit later because I'm going to point out some things here, but I'll answer that question a little bit later. There you see Randy.
Well, that's a pretty shot.
As a runner. You can see we're setting a back screen for him. See, passes on him as tough as he can possibly be. And here you can see at the end of the game, we have great respect. We both coach the game pretty much the same. We try to recruit the same quality human beings and we go head-to-head on some of the players. I think they have much better depth. And I think Kansas, Bill, is a team that could be in Seattle. I think they're one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the country. I hope we get another shot at them Sunday afternoon in the championship game of the Big 8 tournament. Bryant Reeves is very mature. I told him, I said, losers dwell on the past, winners think ahead, and he's going to do that. In our practice sessions this week, he was great. I have no reason to think that he won't have a super Big 8 tournament. He did something that displayed great class and great maturity in that, a lot of players, after you had a game like that you just wouldn't want to talk to anybody. Sure. And yet he stood there with about 25 sports writers surrounding him and answered every one of their questions after the game. And he won a lot of respect from the sports writers in the Big 8 country by doing that.
Well, there's no doubt that he's going to bounce back in a big way. That was an exciting game, obviously, and Randy Rutherford a big part of that. And when we come back, we'll take a special look at that game and a special look at Randy Rutherford. Welcome back to the Eddie Sutton Show. We've been talking about the Kansas game and Randy Rutherford's outstanding performance as one of the greats of all time in Oklahoma State basketball history. In our Off the Court feature this week, Tom Dirato takes a special look at Randy Rutherford.
Today we got to jump over. Did a fairly good job first game in Stillwater. Make good, sharp, crisp passes.
30 years ago, almost today, and I told you this, Oklahoma State came in here and beat Kansas. And you can do it today. We beat them once, but we come in here today and you have a chance to do something that not very many ball coaches have a chance to do, is to come in and win a championship on the last day of the year on the other team's court. And I believe you can do it. But let's go out there and let's leave it all alone. Now let's go. Let's go.
Let's go! 1, 2, 3, big ass! Go, baby.
Better than
another outstanding piece by Tom Dirato. But, you know, I mentioned we're going to miss Bryant Reeves, but we're going to miss that guy too. I've been blessed with so many great backcourt players at different places I've coached, and that performance was the best. I mean, and when you really go back and look at the film, not only did he score, but you saw that hustle play when he went on the floor. You saw that time when he took that ball away from a 6'11" guy on a rebound, and he just played an outstanding basketball game. But he's been playing that way, and of course, I mentioned that he and Bryant were both first team All Big 8 in not only the AP, the Sports Writers poll, but also the coaches poll. So we still got a lot of basketball left, and if we're going to do well in the NCAA, those two guys are going to have great nights together. We don't need any more like Bryant, but we need a few more like Randy had against the Jayhawks.
Well, he certainly has been great fun to watch over the last 3 years at Oklahoma State, and thanks to Wade Pearson, who did a great job in that feature as well. When we come back, we'll take a look at what's ahead for the Cowboys postseason time. We'll talk about that when the Eddie Sutton Show continues. Welcome back to the Eddie Sutton Show. Before we talk about the postseason, which is here, let's talk about basketball camps a little bit.
Well, we talked a little bit last week about this, but the brochures are now in, and anyone that's interested in sending their young son to our camp, it's a wonderful experience. We're talking about Randy and Bryant. They're both going to be there with all of our other players to assist us, and we've got a little mini camp for youngsters, first grade through the sixth grade, and then we got an overnight camp, and then we got a team camp. So anyone can call our office or send a letter, and we'll send them a brochure. But it is a marvelous experience, and I think that any youngster having the opportunity to rub shoulders with Brian and Randy and all of our other players, that's an experience in itself.
For a parent that's never had a child go through that, you teach them the fundamentals and all kinds of things with basketball, isn't it?
Bill, we try to teach them the basic fundamentals. We try to also teach them what we feel like it takes to win. We do a lot of, and we're pretty strict. I mean, we also make them, you know, they have to get up and make their beds in the morning and that sort of thing, and try to show them that what it really takes to be a winner on the court, but some things that might help them in other areas of their life. So I've been in the camp business, I guess, since 1959. I've had a lot of wonderful young people come through our camps. So I hope that a lot of the young people here in Oklahoma will have an opportunity to come up here and be a part of that.
Again, if you're interested, just call the Cowboy basketball office or send it to the address and we'll take care of you there. Okay, let's talk about Big 8 standings, the final standings. Let's take a look at them.
Well, you can see we second place, and we've finished second 4 times in the last 5-year period, and tied Kansas for the league championship the other year. So we've had good teams here during that 5-year period. But this year, you can take all those ball clubs in the lower half of the conference, and believe me, on a given night they can jump up and beat you. And in the Big 8 tournament this week, in the first round, all 4 high seeds were playing teams that they had beaten twice in a row, and that doesn't happen very often. So it's hard to beat anybody 3 times.
Well, and you look at Colorado playing some great basketball right now. Again, we are taping this before the Big 8 tournament, so a lot of things have been happening. It's been a great weekend. I'm sure it always is in Kansas City. Let's take a look at the NCAA tournament and where teams could be going. Of course, that'll be coming out Sunday afternoon.
March Madness is special. I think the NCAA tournament now has become the greatest sporting event in America. And, of course, next week you can see in the East you've got Albany, New York, and Baltimore, the first-round games, and then the regional is in the Meadowlands. You switch to the Southeast, you can either be in Memphis or in Tallahassee, and the regional will be in Birmingham. In the Midwest, and I would assume Kansas is probably going to get to stay here, and they'll either go to Dayton or Austin, and the regionals in Kansas City. I wish we could stay in this part of the. I'd like to go to Austin or Dayton and have the opportunity to go to the Sweet 16 in Kansas City and play in Kemper. And in the West, you've got the 2 first-round points are Salt Lake City, Boise, and the regional is in Oakland, California. But it's a wonderful time of the year. If you like college basketball, this is great. And, of course, the Final Four is in Seattle, Washington, the first part of April.
what becomes the most important thing for your team, or any team, when you go to the NCAA? Because right now it's you lose and you're done. So how do you handle that? How do you get the guys to have their nerves under control but yet be ready to play? And what goes into getting the team ready for this thing?
Well, I think this is either the 19th or 20th year that I've taken teams to the NCAA, and I think the thing you try to stress to them is let's focus in on one game at a time. It's a new beginning. Everybody really is 0-0, and I think that's one thing where seniors come in. Our players have been in the NCAA 3 years in a row, and I think that's really important. It's always fun to get in the NCAA because when you're in a league, everybody knows what you're doing,
sure,
and it's hard to run plays, and so you get a new look at a ball club. And believe me, when you get in the NCAA tournament with the parity we have today, I think there are 7 or 8 teams that maybe are better than anyone else day after day, but that doesn't mean that you can't beat them. But when you take the next 30 teams, they're all about the same, and then you take the last 20-some, and maybe they drop down to a little lower level. But anyone that's in the 64-team bracket, believe me, they're good or they wouldn't be there. And it's just an exciting time. The office pools, everybody can identify with either their team or a team in their league. And so, like I said, it's a building up. It's unlike the Super Bowl that maybe is there one day. For a 3-week period, you start out, there's 64 teams. The next week there's only 16. The next week there's 4. And it just keeps building and building until you get to the Final Four.
Well, there's nothing like it. And if you're a basketball fan, obviously, this is your time of season. Coach, best of luck to you. And that's it. Again, the Cowboys in the Big 8 tournament as we speak. We'll see you next week on the Eddie Sutton Show. So long, everybody.